Fennel, one of the important characters in Pokémon Black and White, and hey, what do you mean you don't remember her? Okay, obviously everybody's gotta remember her, and she definitely isn't an obscure character, but for sure, depending on what your enjoyment of the Pokémon franchise looked like back in Generation 5, you might not have had the same experience with this character as other people. So Fennel first appears in Pokémon Black and White residing in Striaton City, being the one to introduce you to the Dreamyard as well as the Pokémon Munna and Musharna, and the entire concept of Pokémon Dreams as well as Game Sync and the Dream World. Yes, there is an entire rabbit hole here. So in the main series games, you don't need to interact with her all that much, but she is a friend of Professor Juniper as well as the older sister of Amanita, the character who runs the PC storage system here in the Unova region, and she does also give you a tutorial for the Game Sync feature that maybe not everybody utilized, but for me personally, she was definitely one of my favorites. So when I played through Pokémon Black and White, I actually had the official strategy guide. It was given to me as a birthday present when Pokémon Black and White came out, and definitely is one of my favorite things I own. Just playing through a Pokémon game for the first time with a strategy guide at your fingertips is such an interesting feeling, and I don't think it can be replicated the same way by having all the answers online. Now obviously there is a bunch of printed information and helpful guides, but I really do love the feeling of it as well, having all this official Pokemon art printed in one place. I remember going through all the character portraits at the very beginning of a book, and while most of them are gym leaders or villains that would eventually be part of the story, I remember seeing the artwork of Fennel and being so fascinated, and eventually actually playing the game I came to like her character. But there was even more beyond just that, because as I mentioned, she is the one who introduces us to the Game Sync feature in Pokémon Black and White. This was a feature through which you could put Pokémon to sleep in the PC on your DS, and then log into the Pokémon website on your computer and play with them online. The Dream World was a little browser-based adventure where you could see the Pokémon you put to sleep, and do things like decorate your little island, go on excursions to find some items, and also play a few minigames. I would spend so much time after school and during the weekends playing this game and then bringing them back into the Nintendo DS, where through the intro link you could get some of the items you found online and catch some of the Pokemon that you met as well. Definitely at some point I'll talk about this defunct feature in greater detail. I think there's like a fan-made version in the works. That is because the website was eventually shut down when we moved on to Generation 6. But as I mentioned, Fennel was our guide through the side game, and she even has some additional portraits that would be used in this game and this game alone. So that is at least how my personal connection to this character was actually grown. And yeah, aside from that, I'll admit there isn't all that much else. Really, her design is relatively basic, but I just love the concept of how she's utilized alongside the other characters. Again, being friends with Professor Juniper and being related to the one who developed the PC system here in Unova. Also being partnered up with Munna and Musharna, Pokemon that maybe aren't necessarily super amazing, but I think they were decently important Pokemon, at least when it comes to the whole Dream World and Dream Radar stuff going on. Oh yeah, she was actually mentioned in the Dream Radar game in the Nintendo 3DS, as that is also a whole other thing with the Dream World going on. She is actually friends with Professor Burnett, who is the guide of that game. But anyway, the other place we would see Fennel a bit more of was in the anime, of course, and that is a pretty fun appearance as well. In the episode Dreams by the Yardful, where she debuts, this one actually has half of it finishing the gym battle between Silent and Ash, right before Team Rocket heads off to the Dreamyard and sets off this device that causes some trouble, that results in a bunch of Dream Mist falling around Striaton City and causing Pokemon to fall asleep. Fennel shows up with her Munna and gets right to work by telling everybody what's going on and having Munna help out, then eventually leading our gang to the Dream World and giving some lore dumps of what happened there. And to my knowledge, I think this is where we get most of the story of what the Dreamyard actually was, being this whole research facility where people were trying to develop a brand new form of energy utilizing Musharna, and the Dream Mist that it created. There's this real dramatic flashback in the anime that gives us all the details, as everything was ruined when a bunch of greedy people showed up and their evil dreams ended up corrupting Musharna, or at least just causing it to lose control and make a big explosion. So now when the gang shows up back to the Dreamyard and encounters Team Rocket, they're able to fight them off and save the day for the moment, eventually reuniting them with the Musharna that was hiding out there. And then by the time we get to the end of the episode, that's also where Silent officially joins Ash on his journey. But for the little chunk that introduces Fennel, Munna, Musharna, and the whole concept of dreams, it was pretty cool. She does show up again later in another episode that I really like, titled Archeops in the Modern World. Yes, I know it's not even July, but we're talking about some fossil Pokemon for a bit. So as the gang are on their way to Nimbasa City, they reunite with Professor Juniper and Dr. Fennel. And I realized I was going the whole video without calling her Dr. Fennel, but she is referred to as that at some point. Anyway, they have a plume fossil that they're going to be reviving by utilizing Musharna's Dream Mist. Somehow that works, I guess. You know what, if they were going to be using the Dream Mist to create some sort of energy before, then sure, I guess it can be used to revive fossil Pokemon. Anyway, I really like this episode. It's a bit of a funny one, as when they revive Arkin, it's a little goofy guy running around everywhere. I really wish that were me, but Archon and Archeops are actually some of my favorite Generation 5 Pokemon, so getting to see them here was a really fun treat. Throughout the course of the episode, Archon does eventually evolve into an Archeops, and then of course Team Rocket shows up to try and steal the Pokemon, they're thwarted, and then we have our usual happy ending for the Pokemon anime, and at a later point I definitely will talk about this episode a bit more once I make a full video about Archeops later on, but for now what was important is that Dr. Fennel showed up again in the anime, and all of the little research that she's doing is really important because of how it ties into the anime overall with all the stuff that Team Rocket is doing, and it is just really cool that we got to see her again beyond the events of the Dreamyard as we would see in the video games. And for the moment that is about all we have for Fennel. For a character so seemingly important in terms of concept early on, and one who is a guide to an entire spin-off game, yes, I'm gonna count Pokémon Dream World as a spin-off game, I feel like in the grand scheme of things she is a little underutilized. Of course she does appear in the Pokémon Adventures manga as well, having a role that more or less adapts her video game appearance, but after that it's time to talk about the trading card game because you know your boy picked himself up a full art. First of all, she did actually get a card back in Generation 5 called Fennel's Help, but that card was only ever released in Japanese. It wasn't until recently with Black Bolt that she got a dedicated supporter card, which as you would guess has a standard and a full art variant. As I'm going through a few of the full arts that I missed, this is one that I picked up recently, and of course is what inspired me to make this video, but for being a character that I personally heavily associated with Pokemon Black and White, I was kinda surprised to see how little there actually was. You know, she doesn't even have her own dedicated overworld sprite, she actually shares it with the female scientist trainer class. So in all honesty, I guess everything was just in my head and this really is an obscure character. Sure, she is someone you have to interact with in order to progress through the story, but I know for sure not everybody got to play the Dream World, nor did they play it as much as I did. And especially if you're somebody who is going through the Generation 5 games now and have basically no access to it, then really we only have our own memories of it, which are just as hazy as a dream. Fennel is definitely a character I would love to see more of throughout the Pokemon franchise, and I am very happy for the recent TCG appearance, but the problem is I think that's just about all we're gonna get until the inevitable Generation 5 remake. So go ahead and leave a comment below telling me your thoughts of Dr. Fennel, and let me know if we happen to share any of the same experiences. Truly, when it comes to some Pokemon characters, their interpretations are completely personal. You yourself are the ones who decide their importance. Anyway, if you enjoyed watching, remember to leave a like, subscribe, hype up the video as well, but for now I'm gonna go ahead and lay down and maybe I'll dream a dream of Generation 5 remakes that are actually gonna be really cool and good. Thank you to every channel member for your continued support, including the Great Gators, Cemetery Hill, Byron Brown, Saturn, Jammy Jammy, David Scalf, Being Meguka is Suffering, Cosmo Zero, Alex with Shiny Hunts, Star Shooter, Koi Koi 13, Cheez It 62, Gator Kid 509, TF, Mathaclock 947, Taijirai, and Quago. If you would like to support, see your name here, get access to emotes, for comments, live streams, sometimes early videos, and our members only Discord server, you can become a channel member today. You can also follow me on Twitter and Blue Sky as well for more memes. Anyway, this is GatorX and I will catch you all later.
Pokémon trading card game Black and White is your gateway to a bigger Pokémon world. 70 new Pokémon, more than 110 cards. Pokémon trading card game Black and White, in stores now. Each booster pack of 10 cards sold separately, cards vary by pack.